Welcome, faithful viewers. Today, we're diving into the extraordinary life of Sarah, the wife of Abraham and a pivotal figure in our faith. Her story is one of patience, faith, and the miraculous power of God's promises. Sarah's journey begins in the ancient city of Ur, where she was known as Sarah, married to Abram, later renamed Abraham. She embarked on a life-changing adventure when God called them to leave their homeland. Imagine the courage it took to leave everything behind and follow God's voice into the unknown. As they journeyed through Canaan, Egypt, and back, Sarah stood by Abraham's side. Her beauty was so remarkable that Abraham, fearing for his life, twice asked her to say she was his sister. This led to some tense moments, but God protected Sarah and revealed his power to pharaohs and kings. But Sarah's test of faith came in the form of a promise of a child. God told Abraham that he would become the father of many nations, but there was one small problem. Sarah was barren. Year after year passed, and still, no child came. Can you imagine the heartache, the doubt, the whispers of those around them? Yet, Sarah persevered. Her story teaches us that God's timing is not our timing, and His ways are higher than our ways. In a moment of weakness, Sarah took matters into her own hands. She gave her maidservant, Hagar, to Abram, hoping to build a family through her. This decision led to the birth of Ishmael, but it wasn't the fulfillment of God's promise. It reminds us that when we try to force God's hand, we often create more problems than solutions. But here's where the story takes a miraculous turn. When Sarah was 90 years old. Yes, you heard that right. God appeared to Abraham and renewed his promise. Sarah, overhearing the conversation, laughed in disbelief. Can you blame her? The idea of having a baby at her age seemed absurd. Yet, God's word proved true. Against all odds, Sarah conceived and gave birth to Isaac, whose name means laughter. What was once a laugh of disbelief became a laugh of joy and wonder at God's faithfulness. Sarah's story doesn't end there. She lived to see Isaac grow into a young man, and her faith continued to be tested. When God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, can you imagine the turmoil in Sarah's heart? Though the Bible doesn't record her reaction, we can only imagine the depth of her trust in God's plan. Sarah's life teaches us so much about faith, perseverance, and God's faithfulness. She was imperfect. None of us are. But her journey shows us that God can work through our imperfections to accomplish His perfect wills. As we reflect on Sarah's story, let's consider a few key lessons. First, God's promises are sure, even when they seem impossible. Sarah waited 25 years for the fulfillment of God's promise. In our instant gratification world, that kind of patience is hard to fathom. But it reminds us that God is faithful, even when we can't see how His plan will unfold. Second, our mistakes don't disqualify us from God's plan. Sarah made mistakes, like the situation with Hagar, but God still used her mightily. This should encourage us when we stumble in our own faith journeys. Third, age is no barrier to God. Sarah became a mother at 90. This reminds us that God can use us at any stage of life. Whether you're young or old, God has a purpose for you. Lastly, Sarah's story points us to a greater promise. In the New Testament, she's held up as an example of faith. And through her lineage came Jesus Christ, the ultimate fulfillment of God's promise to bless all nations. As we close, I want to encourage you to think about the Sarah in your own life. Maybe it's your mother, grandmother, or a mentor who's demonstrated incredible faith. Or perhaps you see yourself in Sarah's story, waiting on a promise, facing impossible odds, or laughing in disbelief at God's plans. Remember, the God of Sarah is your God too. He is faithful, He keeps His promises, and He can do the impossible in your life. So, hold on to faith, even when the waiting is long. Trust in His timing, even when it doesn't make sense. And be ready for the laughter of joy when God moves in miraculous ways. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Sarah's life. May her story inspire you to trust God more deeply and to hold on to His promises, no matter what. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it's blessed you. See you in the next one.